world increasingly divisive, can Antarctica stay neutral and unclaimed?
The sudden escalation of military activity in Antarctica began quietly, almost imperceptibly. Yet the scale of the deployment made clear that something significant had occurred. For years, Antarctica had been a place of scientific intrigue, an untouched expanse of ice and silence. But the arrival of U.S. Navy assets changed its atmosphere completely. Entire fleets of aircraft carriers, submarines, and advanced surveillance drones were suddenly repositioned toward the southernmost region of Earth. What had once been a space reserved for international cooperation and environmental research was abruptly transformed into a zone of restricted access, patrolled by some of the most powerful naval forces in existence. The reason, as whispered through classified briefings and half-leaked reports, was as startling as it was unsettling: the discovery of alien structures buried deep beneath the ice sheets. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The revelation first emerged through the work of satellite reconnaissance. Advanced imaging systems, originally designed to map shifting ice shelves and track climate patterns, began to return irregular readings. The anomalies could not be explained by natural geology or frozen lakes. Instead, beneath the thick ice layers, there appeared to be vast geometric formations, structures so immense and symmetrical that they could not have been formed by natural forces. When ground-based expeditions attempted to investigate, communication was abruptly severed, and within weeks the U.S. Navy locked down the region, declaring zones off-limits and deploying security perimeters enforced by air patrols and submarine surveillance. The structures themselves appeared older than any human civilization, embedded deep within the ice as though they had been entombed for millennia. What made the discovery more compelling was the faint energy signature emanating from beneath the ice cap. Sensitive instruments registered low-frequency pulses, rhythmic and deliberate, suggesting not only technology but perhaps functionality that had never ceased, even in the crushing cold and pressure of Antarctica's depths. These signals were what pushed the military to treat the matter as a national security emergency. The possibility that something alive, or at least something still operational, lay beneath the ice changed the tone from curiosity to existential caution. Within weeks, the Navy established secure bases on the periphery of the continent. Satellite coverage intensified, blocking civilian observation, while research teams from allied nations were denied access to their long-established stations. Officially, the restrictions were framed as necessary safety measures due to geological instability, but this explanation satisfied few. Independent researchers who had long monitored seismic activity knew the ice shelves were stable, making the military justification ring hollow. Instead, whispers of alien presence spread across defense networks and even into civilian conspiracy communities, further fueled by the sheer secrecy surrounding the lockdown. What unsettled observers most was the Navy's focus on under-ice exploration. Nuclear submarines equipped with advanced drilling and sonar mapping equipment were redirected from the Pacific Fleet and stationed in the Southern Ocean. Reports suggested that these vessels were not simply scouting the terrain but actively probing access points, searching for entrances beneath the ice. Cargo aircraft ferried heavy machinery into hidden bases, machinery that seemed unnecessary for environmental study but perfectly suited for excavation. The urgency of the mission hinted at the possibility that the structures beneath the ice were not inert ruins, but concealed chambers containing advanced technologies or beings that could reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. For decades, there had been speculation about Antarctica's mysteries, legends of hidden worlds beneath the ice. Ancient civilizations and secret military projects had circulated through alternative circles, often dismissed as fantastical. Yet the Navy's unprecedented mobilization lent those speculations an uncomfortable credibility. The decision to shut down civilian access, reroute scientific expeditions, and restrict international observation was not the behavior of a military responding to a mere anomaly. It was the response of a force preparing for contact with something beyond human comprehension. Inside military circles, the implications of the discovery were debated fiercely. If the signals beneath the ice were a form of communication, what message was being transmitted? Was it a distress beacon, a territorial warning, or an invitation? Could it be that an alien civilization had been stranded beneath the ice long before human history began? The possibility that intelligent beings had not only reached Earth, but remained hidden, dormant, or active beneath one of its most inaccessible regions struck at the foundations of every assumption about human uniqueness. Scientists who were granted limited access to data reportedly described the structures as both architectural and biomechanical, as if the lines between technology and biology blurred in ways human understanding could scarcely categorize. The geopolitical implications were equally staggering. Antarctica, once governed by treaties ensuring peace and cooperation, suddenly became a focal point of military competition. While the US Navy enforced its lockdown, satellite images suggested that other nations, particularly Russia and China, were attempting their own incursions into the frozen continent. The secrecy of the operation meant that global alliances strained under suspicion, each government desperate to secure its own share of whatever lay beneath the ice. The risk of conflict over alien technology, or worse, over potential contact with extraterrestrial beings, loomed over diplomatic relations like a dark cloud. What added to the tension was the realization that the ice itself was not a permanent barrier. Climate change had already been accelerating the melting of Antarctica's outer shelves, and if the alien structures became exposed naturally, the global population could no longer be shielded from the truth. The Navy's shutdown then was not only about maintaining control, but about buying time. Time to study, to prepare, and perhaps to decide how much of this revelation should be shared with the world. Yet secrecy came at a cost, for speculation spread faster than official narratives, and every unexplained action by the military deepened suspicion. The idea that an advanced species could be hiding beneath Antarctica raised deeper philosophical questions. If they had been here for millennia, what had they been waiting for? Did they intend to remain hidden forever? Or was humanity's technological progress what triggered their detection? Perhaps the signals pulsing through the ice were not new at all, but had simply gone unnoticed until modern instruments became sensitive enough to register them. If so, then humanity had stumbled into an ancient reality that had always been present, unseen, but never absent. The implication was unsettling. Earth might not belong solely to humans, but to other intelligences that had staked their claim long before history was written. Those who speculated on the alien presence beneath the ice suggested multiple possibilities. One theory held that the structures were a base, constructed intentionally to withstand Earth's changing climates, chosen for its remoteness and natural concealment. Another argued they were a prison, designed to hold entities that could not be allowed to roam freely. A third posited that they were a vault of knowledge, a repository of alien technology deliberately hidden where no early human society could reach. Each possibility carried profound consequences. A base implied ongoing activity, a prison implied danger, and a vault implied secrets that could either advance or destabilize human civilization in unimaginable ways. The Navy's behavior gave credence to the idea that danger was a factor. The perimeter defenses, the secrecy, and the refusal to allow scientific teams entry all suggested a protective posture, as if the discovery posed not only opportunity, but also risk. If an alien presence were indeed active, then the military's primary duty would be containment, preventing any contact that could spiral beyond control. Yet in doing so, the Navy effectively positioned itself as the gatekeeper to humanity's greatest revelation, deciding unilaterally who had the right to knowledge that belonged to all of Earth. The silence surrounding the expedition teams that first encountered the structures only deepened unease. Were they silenced because they had seen too much, or because they had made contact? Rumors circulated that entire groups had disappeared into the ice, never to re-emerge. If true, their fate remained one of the most closely guarded secrets of the operation. Some believed they had been lost to environmental hazards, while others whispered that they had been taken, either by the Navy itself for debriefing or by whatever intelligence lay beneath the ice. In either case, their absence became part of the mystery, a reminder that those who approached the alien structures did not return unchanged. The scientific implications of alien presence beneath Antarctica were staggering. If the structures contained technologies older than humanity, studying them could revolutionize every field from energy to medicine to space travel. The possibility of understanding propulsion systems that function without combustion, communication networks beyond electromagnetic waves, or biological enhancements integrated with machinery could catapult humanity centuries ahead of its current trajectory. Yet the danger was just as great, for mishandling such technologies could unleash consequences no one could predict. The Navy's decision to control access, then, may have been less about secrecy and more about preventing catastrophe. Public fascination with the event grew as fragments of information leaked into global consciousness. Amateur radio operators claimed to intercept strange frequencies emanating from Antarctica, frequencies that pulsed with mathematical precision. Pilots reported being redirected away from air corridors that had always been open. Even supply routes to scientific stations were rerouted, with shipments delayed or canceled under vague pretenses. Each unexplained action fed the narrative of alien presence, making the official silence louder than any statement could have been. The world was left to wonder what truth was being hidden beneath the ice, and why it was considered too dangerous to reveal. The Navy's control of Antarctica in the wake of the discovery was not just a military maneuver, but a signal to the world that humanity had crossed a threshold. The boundaries of human knowledge had been breached, and something older, stranger, and potentially more powerful than any empire lay waiting in the frozen depths. Whether it was an ally, an adversary, or a silent observer remained unknown. What was clear was that the rules had changed. Earth was no longer an isolated stage for human history alone. The presence beneath the ice ensured that the planet's story was entangled with forces beyond imagination. The chilling vastness of Antarctica had always evoked mystery, but now its icy silence held secrets that could redefine civilization. The Navy's decision to shut it down marked the beginning of a new chapter, one defined by secrecy, discovery, and the weight of questions too immense to answer. What lay beneath the ice was not merely an archaeological curiosity, but a mirror held up to humanity, reflecting both its insignificance and its potential. For beneath those frozen miles, under the crushing pressure and silence, something waited, and the Navy's presence ensured that when humanity finally faced it, the encounter would be on their terms, or so they hoped. The transition from scientific wonderland to militarized frontier in Antarctica was not only abrupt, but also revealing. For decades, the continent had been one of the last bastions of global cooperation, a place where nations set aside rivalries in the pursuit of knowledge. Yet the discovery beneath the ice fractured that fragile harmony overnight. The presence of the U.S. Navy turned the southernmost pole into a zone of surveillance and restricted movement. Every deployment of ships and aircraft reinforced the idea that the discovery was not simply scientific, but something that demanded absolute control. What was once an untouched landscape became a staging ground for the most secretive operation humanity had ever seen, driven by forces that the public could not begin to fathom. As the Navy entrenched itself deeper, the logistics of the operation revealed hints of what might be happening behind the ice curtain. Supply convoys loaded with equipment not typically associated with cold weather research began to move in increasing numbers. Thermal scanners, high-energy drills, mobile nuclear power units, and even modular living complexes capable of withstanding extreme subterranean conditions were spotted being transported southward. These were not the tools of climate scientists, but of explorers preparing to push into unknown chambers beneath the Earth. The precision of the preparations suggested that the structures beneath the ice were not a single discovery, but a network, perhaps sprawling like a hidden city, concealed for ages under the crushing sheets of glacial time. The very design of the structures challenged human imagination. Early descriptions that escaped through fragmented leaks indicated that the geometry was simultaneously alien and elegant, both incomprehensible and purposeful. Patterns aligned with no known architectural style on Earth, curving into dimensions that seemed impossible under normal physics. Some parts appeared crystalline, refracting energy fields that interfered with conventional instruments, while others were metallic with alloys unknown to human industry. What unsettled researchers most, however, was the sensation that the structures were not merely built but grown. The walls bore the texture of living tissue hardened into permanence, as if the alien creators had merged biological processes with construction itself. It was not a building in the human sense, but something hybrid, alive in ways beyond comprehension. The question of whether anything remained within the structures gnawed at those who studied the data. Energy pulses emanated from certain sections of the formations with the regularity of a heartbeat, fueling speculation that machinery, or even life, remained active. The ice acted as both prison and preservation chamber, keeping whatever lay beneath frozen in stasis yet preventing it from decay. Some analysts propose that the structures had been intentionally buried, perhaps to hide from detection or to remain dormant until conditions were right for reawakening. Others suggested the ice was an accident, the result of shifting climates that entombed a civilization unprepared for Earth's changing face. Regardless of the origin, the signals pulsing upward through miles of frozen water made it clear that this was not a graveyard. Something still moved beneath the cold silence. The Navy's heavy-handed secrecy did more than contain the discovery. It inflamed suspicion and inspired a wave of theories about the intentions behind the lockdown. Citizens, cut off from official explanations, filled the void with imagination. Some believed the Navy was preparing to negotiate with an alien intelligence, securing alliances that would tilt the balance of global power. Others feared that the discovery was hostile, a potential invasion force biding its time beneath the ice until reawakened. Still others wondered if the Navy's focus was not on contact, but on reverse engineering whatever technology lay hidden in the frozen depths, seizing an advantage that could catapult one nation centuries ahead of others in military and technological supremacy. The sudden reallocation of global resources toward Antarctica did not escape the notice of rival powers. Intelligence reports confirmed that Russia, China, and several other nations were conducting their own covert operations on the continent's fringes. Some were disguised as scientific missions, while others operated under the veil of commercial exploration. Yet the real aim was unmistakable: to penetrate the ice and reach the structures themselves. This brewing competition risked igniting the most dangerous conflict in human history, for it was no longer about territory or resources, but about contact with a civilization that might dwarf all of Earth's achievements combined. The possibility of alien knowledge was too valuable to leave uncontested, and the fragile Antarctic treaty that once symbolized peace now hung by a thread. For those within the inner circles of the Navy, the discovery carried psychological weight as much as strategic urgency. To gaze upon structures so alien was to confront a truth that humanity had long feared yet quietly suspected: that it was not alone. The sheer scale of the structures suggested not only intelligence, but a mastery of science and engineering that humanity could not match. The recognition humbled even the most hardened officers, stripping away illusions of dominance and forcing them to contemplate humanity's vulnerability. If such beings had built cities beneath Antarctica, what else were they capable of? And if they had remained undetected until now, what other hidden presences might exist across the world? Amid this backdrop of secrecy and unease, questions about the purpose of the structures deepened. Theories abounded that they might be gateways rather than cities, portals connecting Earth to distant reaches of the universe. Strange fluctuations in electromagnetic fields suggested distortions that could be consistent with attempts at bending space-time, fueling the belief that these structures might once have been transportation hubs. If true, then the beings who built them may not have been permanent residents of Earth, but travelers, using the planet as a staging ground for interstellar journeys. The very idea that Antarctica might conceal a doorway to other worlds electrified those who studied the data, while terrifying those tasked with preventing its misuse. The biological dimension of the discovery raised even more profound questions. Reports hinted at organic matter embedded within the structures, remnants of life forms that seemed adapted to environments far more extreme than Earth's. DNA analyses were classified, but whispers suggested that fragments were unlike any terrestrial biology, hinting at genetic blueprints of extraterrestrial origin. The possibility that living organisms, perhaps even intelligent entities, lay dormant within the ice blurred the line between science fiction and reality. Some believe these organisms were guardians, engineered to protect the structures from intrusion. Others feared they were prisoners, sealed away precisely because they posed a threat. Whatever the truth, the Navy's containment posture suggested they were preparing for the possibility that awakening what lay beneath could unleash forces beyond their control. The discovery also shifted humanity's understanding of its own history. Archaeologists and historians forced into silence privately debated the implications. If alien structures had existed beneath Antarctica for millennia, then human civilizations may have unknowingly developed under the watchful presence of extraterrestrial neighbors. Ancient myths of gods descending from the sky, legends of subterranean realms, and unexplained anomalies in human development suddenly seemed less like metaphor and more like distorted echoes of real encounters. The possibility that human progress had been influenced, or even guided, by unseen hands buried beneath the ice could no longer be dismissed outright. Humanity's narrative was no longer a solitary march, but perhaps a chapter in a larger cosmic story. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on US Navy shutting Antarctica? Do you believe alien discovery? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.